All right, hey everyone. This is the Badge Talk. I hope that's why you're here. And this is going to be fairly informal because I didn't have time to prepare slides and all that fun stuff. So I hope you all have lots of questions. Who here's actually played the badge game? Sweet. Have fun? No? Okay. That's fair. That's fair. So yeah, to go along with the theme of the conference this year, right, we did a clue game. For those that have played, did anyone actually finish their game? Yeah, one person, a couple people? Okay, sweet. So for those of you still playing, we changed the timeouts today to 5 minutes, so it should go a lot quicker. Yeah, sorry if that caused heartache for people. We're trying to, strike a balance between making the game fun and also making it last more than an hour. So, yeah, feel free to let me know later if we got that wrong or if we should do it differently in the future. So, did anyone figure out, are you all playing the same game? Are you playing together? No, different games. Everyone has a different game. It's completely randomized. So yeah, this changed many times throughout our design process. Initially, everyone was playing the same game. And that is why we had things like the light sensor to turn off your LEDs when the cover was closed so that people couldn't snoop on what you had gotten checked off, that type of thing. And that light sensor ended up being a pain for some people, especially in dimly lit rooms. I apologize for that. So, yeah, lots of fun things and design changes throughout. For those of you who haven't played, this is what the game kiosks look like. Just a slot for your badge, stick it in, hit suggest or accuse, and it'll start checking things off on your badge. For those who are unaware of how these types of games work, I just want to throw this out there. Attacking the game infrastructure is out of scope. These are not for taking apart and messing with. And who's played with mini badges and getting those on there? Yes. So someone came to me this morning and had 3 sets of mini badge wings attached to their badge. It's the most I've seen so far. Has anyone done more than that? You got 3? Nice.
I used to have 4, but it broke then.
It broke with 4? I'm not surprised. So, yeah, going with the thinner PCBs this year, that's one of the trade-offs, right? It weighs less and feels more like, a notebook, right? But, yeah, a little flimsier. Show of hands, who thinks we should stay with the thinner stuff? Yeah? Everyone likes the thinner stuff? Who likes the thicker badges? A little bit more? Okay. Well, I guess we'll take that into consideration next year and see how we go about that. I guess we should talk about the hardware, right? So it's using an RP2040, it's a Raspberry Pi Pico chip. It's not the best for this type of deal. One of the big issues with it is power consumption. It's not great at doing low power stuff, like at all. It's fast, but it takes a lot of juice. The problem is, it's about the only chip you can get in quantity right now, reliably. So we actually ordered these chips in January when they became available. And I said to Troy, we need to order these right now. So these have been sitting on a shelf since January until we built all the badges. And one of the weird limitations is it looks like there's a lot of pins on that chip. There's really not. We've got 30 IOs to do everything with. And it's not enough. So the LEDs, right, there's 52 of them, times 3 because they're RGB. It's 156 LEDs to drive with 30 pins. And we still got lots of other stuff to do. So they are Charlie-plexed, For those of you who don't know, it's a really crazy way to connect LEDs to a small number of pins, but it means that the LEDs aren't all on at the same time. In fact, only one is on at any one time. So we are scanning through all 156 LEDs thousands of times a second, turning them on and off to make it look like it's a static display. So if you turn on your badge and you shake it in front of you, you will see that it's pulsing. So that's why the LEDs are not very bright, is that they're barely on. What else? Did anyone plug in USB to their computer? A couple of people? Did you get anything useful? No? Nice. That's good. So, the kiosks use the USB port for communication with the badge. And so the badge doesn't respond unless it gets a special string from the kiosk, and then it'll start responding. However, that's not the only way to get information out of it. If you start changing your suggestion on your badge, it'll start spitting things over serial. Did anyone try that? No? You should. We obfuscated the stuff a little bit, but not too crazy. So I know a couple people have figured out what the packets are that we send back and forth, and that's one of the valid ways of messing with your badge. Right? You can make it display other things other than what you've gotten checked off. Granted, the next time you plug it into the kiosk, it'll get reset. But lots of fun things. You can unlock the special end mode without actually unlocking it the right way. Right? Lots of fun stuff to play with. When you finish the game, there's some special LED modes that you can unlock. What else? All right, who's got some questions? Because I'm drawing a blank here.
What happens after the server infrastructure is not anything with this after?
It won't do a whole lot afterwards, because, I mean, it's just a bunch of LEDs. Like, there's not a screen or much to do anything with. So yeah, it doesn't do a whole lot.
The server-side code base is going to be out there.
I doubt we'll release the server-side code. It's just a server running a database, and we send stuff back and forth. It's nothing fancy. Yeah.
Is the Huawei 1400 connected
So I don't know what the default baud rate is, but the nice thing about USB over serial is it really doesn't matter, because it'll just translate it basically. It'll be, I don't even know. Let's pull up the code actually. Why not, right? I want to say it's like, 115.200 is the default thing. I don't know if it even says. Yeah, it's just a standard USB UART. It's just part of the base code. But yeah, pretty much just connecting to it will get you what you need. I think it's 115.200. You could check, right? Yeah, looks like 115.200 is the default. Yeah.
Some of the strings from the firmware, it looks like they end in /n/R
Mm-hmm.
instead of the usual /r/n.
So it is deliberate in that I didn't write the kiosk code, and so interfacing with that was given to me, and so somebody else did that, and that's the way it sends it so that it works. That's about it for that. Speaking of which, my friend Redacted is the one who did all the kiosk code and the backend database code, and it's freaking awesome. So kudos to him for doing that and helping. It's been great. Any questions? Yeah.
It's my first time here. What is it for? What's the goal? Let me stop it.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, the goal of the badge is just something for you to interact with and have fun. That's the basic goal. Something to play with and hack on and just see what you can do with it. Right. Yeah.
So, yes, and just following along with that. So, if this is your first time, if you're new, where do you start?
That depends. Starting with the game or with the badge itself or with other parts? I mean, yeah. Okay, so starting with the game, right? If you turn on your badge, right, you have a couple blue lights, one's blinking. That's the one that you are selecting, up and down buttons to select which person or attack you are selecting. Okay, so go through. If you hit the select button, you move over to the other column and you can select the other side. Once you've got one selected, you go stick your badge in one of the kiosks and hit the suggest button, and it will make a suggestion, like in Clue, right? And then the kiosk will respond as if it's a player saying, here's a card, essentially, to disprove your suggestion. And then it'll mark it off in green on your badge. And you keep doing that until you figure out which three things, right? Which person used what attack in what location. Does that answer your question?
Question on that. So does green mean it's not valid?
Yeah, green means that's been checked off. Yeah, yeah. Essentially, yeah, you check that off on your clue card. Yeah.
What happens when you get to the right ones, all three, and you push the guess button?
So if you guessed right, there are some caveats to this. So if you guessed right, the kiosk will tell you that it can't disprove your suggestion. Now, in trying to come up with a way to make this work with 1,500 people, right? Not everyone can play the same game because there's only 50-some options, right? And 1,500 people, you could very easily and quickly figure out the common ones. So you're essentially playing a two-player clue game, which doesn't always work all that great if you've ever tried that, because the other person's just got everything that you don't have, right? So one of the differences is the kiosks can only show you a card for their location, not any of the other locations. So if a kiosk says it can't disprove your suggestion, all that means is you very likely got the other two things right, but the location could be wrong. So still some things to check there. Yeah.
So this year and in previous years, you've got these really cool badges, like the Enigma badge, where there was crypto challenges, and then there was a docking station where you had to dock the badge.
Mm-hmm.
But they've only been available during the conference. And I'm too busy attending the conference and doing other stuff to play the game on the badge. Do you have any plans to extend this so that the badge can be used and played outside of the conference?
So it's a very difficult thing to be able to make that available outside of the conference, just because there's infrastructure involved, there's servers that we've got to keep running, and at that point, we'd essentially have to open up some sort of way to get your USB serial to talk to a web server without anything in between, or we have to rewrite the kiosk code, and that's not a fun thing to do. So the chances of it being available after is pretty slim. But again, this is supposed to just be something fun to do, right? It's not, I guess it's not really designed for that. And I know that sucks, especially for volunteers and whatnot. I mean, heck, I haven't even soldered on my mini badge wings. I haven't done any of that because, yeah, I don't have time either. And that's something we need to think about more in the future. Time time being what it was this year wasn't going to happen. For those who don't know, I also did DEF CON this year, so had like 0 time to do this one. So it's been a struggle, but yeah, having something to do with the badge after is something that is brought up during the design process, but doesn't always happen just for logistical and time reasons. So yeah, I will tell you this, for next year, we already have plans for what we're doing, and I'm not doing DEF CON again, so we will have time, and next year's is planned to be something that you can use after the conference. So I know that doesn't help this year, but it'll be better in the future. Yeah.
There were 50-some-odd combinations, but it seems like there's way more.
So there are 50 items, right? Things on your badge. Lots more combinations. Yeah. Any question? Yeah.
You talked about the chip shortage,
Uh-huh.
and you talked about like the GPIOs or IOs on your LEDs.
Yeah.
What other challenges that you had making the badge and designing it and coming up with the thought process?
Okay.
Like when years past, you said, oh, we have problems with this physical part of it, we have problems, sourcing this and different solder things. Were there any other challenges like that you had this year?
So let's see. We did the voltage regulator, surprisingly enough. Those are getting hard to come by. It's weird. Like, that's a very simple part, but yeah, they go out of stock a lot. And the problem with those is pinouts are not standardized, which is always fun. So yeah, we did have to change that, and we actually ran into a problem with the big 10 by 10 boards for the mini badges. So the voltage regulator that's on here, for those who don't know, I'm talking about this part here. It the one we used here was, they had about 2,000 available, so we used all those, and then we didn't have enough for the 10 by 10 boards, and so we ended up having to order those from some random reseller, and they showed up in strips of 50 instead of a reel. And so that was a big problem, because normally you run them through a pick and place machine and it won't deal with little strips of 50 in a tape. So that was a challenge, not with the badge itself, but with other things we did this year. We did have to, the USB connectors were again something that were in high demand, I guess, or they didn't make enough this year. And we had to source them from 3 different places to get enough of them, which is crazy. I think the rest of it we were able to get fairly easily. Yeah, nothing else too crazy this year. Yeah.
Do you have a pick and place that you use to assemble it, or did you outsource that?
We outsourced it for the main badge. The 10 by 10 boards I used my small pick and place for. But yeah, doing these would have taken months.
What was the cost per batch?
Overall cost, I think we're at about $25. Assembly is like $8.50. It's a good chunk of money. It costs money. It's crazy. That's the Pi Pico chip. Yeah, and those are $1. Yeah, which is pretty good, especially nowadays for microcontrollers. Yeah. Yeah.
Going back to what you were saying with the badges, sorry to touch on this again, but in recent years, have there been any badges that did things after the con, or are they generally convention badges?
Some of them do. Trying to remember. I mean, last year's badge, the lock thing, it had some games that you could play afterwards. The interactive part was hard if you didn't have other people with them. the Enigma badge at a game, and it still functioned as an Enigma machine afterwards. This year's DEF CON badge was a little piano synthesizer you could play, and that still works after. And yeah, I guess it varies. This year's SAINTCON badge is a little more simplistic than they've been in the past. So yeah, it varies, and we got to try to go along with the theme, and sometimes that just lends itself better to something simpler. So yeah.
So you obviously have a unique insight into the chip industry. Is it getting better? Are there new competitors coming out there? Is anything improving?
I don't see any new competitors happening. So chip fabs cost billions of dollars, and they take years to spin up. So most of the companies are unwilling to invest that, knowing that in a few years, they're going to have tons of extra capacity that they don't need. So it's one of those, we're just going to have to suffer through it until things catch back up, hopefully. Yeah.
What are some of the challenges in the design phase when making a badge that is interactive person to person versus a single user play badge?
Interacting person to person is extremely difficult to do. The hardest part about it is the physical interface. Connectors are really easy to break, and coming up with something that two people can plug their badges together and not break them is difficult. And connectors are also really expensive, like surprisingly so. And it doesn't seem like much, but when you're looking at 50 cents to $1 per connector, it starts to add up real quick. And you also get into the programming side of that, and how do you do that? There are race conditions between badges, right? Because one's not in charge of the other one, they're all the same. And so, yeah, there are a lot of unique challenges trying to get them to talk person to person rather than to some infrastructure. Yeah.
So I imagine the design process and idea process starts way before you sit down in front of like KiCad or something.
Mm-hmm.
How does your badge team start and come up with the idea of, we're going to do a badge like this and how to interact with this?
That is an excellent question. So, trying to think of the actual process because that was many months ago. I mean, for the most part, a lot of times the beginning is just me. And so, like this year, I did all the hardware and programming and whatnot, and I had Redacted do the back-end game part of it. So, I don't know, I mean, once we came up with the clue theme for the conference, this was just kind of the natural progression, right? Have a clue, like the paper check-off things, and it just kind of grew from there. Yeah.
How did you learn how to make these badges and that sort of stuff? 3 years. How did you learn how to do this?
Mostly self-taught. So, my father was an electrician, so I became interested in electronics very young. And when I went to college, I started making circuit boards, and at that time I was etching them myself and doing that. And then I ended up changing college degrees, and I went into electrical engineering. And yeah, badge life is a very different type of electrical engineering. There's the right way to do things, and then there's the badge way to do things. So there's some very unique differences. Right? Most circuit boards go in an enclosure. People aren't touching them. And touching electronics is usually bad. Static electricity is a thing, especially in a dry climate like here. But you also have the flip side of it. Protecting against static discharge is expensive. Extra parts, extra protection, and badges need to be cheap because they're pretty much disposable. Right? They're one-time use for a few days, and then no one ever touches them again. So we have to trade off between some are going to die, and we don't want to spend the money on all of them lasting years. So it's a very weird thing to try to make that balance out.
What's your take on the cultural significance of badge life?
Cultural significance of badge life. Oh gosh. I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that. I don't know. It's this weird thing that has grown and grown, and tons of people love it and tons of people hate it. And granted, you know, it could be considered a waste of money, waste of resources. There's tons of e-waste generated. But on the flip side, it makes people happy and interact, and yeah, it teaches people, yeah. So there's good and bad, and everything's good and bad, right? It's just how it is. I don't know. Your question here.
I had a question about the clock not extending down to the extender. Is that additional pinout likely to change for future cons where you'll rely primarily on the board, or will the standard of the SEL, the clock, be something that will be extended down for future?
So yeah, the clock pin doesn't exist on the 2019 extenders because, well, the clock pin didn't exist then. So yeah, I hope it's not going to change anymore because I hate changing that standard. It makes my life more difficult. So yeah, hopefully we won't make any more changes to the mini badge standard. Yeah.
First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for making these badges. They're wonderful every single year.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Very elegant. The only question I have is why can I not accuse Professor Plum as one of the suspects?
Why can't you? Did you do it?
It's not on there.
Did we take Professor Plum off? I don't know. This
One blue person? No, no.
this list changed so many times. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, this is my first time at SAINTCON. I'm not sure how far back the mini badge standards you made goes. But did you do it before or after the SAO? Was there a reason why you didn't use the standards badges?
Okay, so the mini badge standard was created by Luke Jenkins in 2017, and that was before I started doing the SAINTCON badge. I don't know if that predates the SAO. Does anyone else? Does it predate that? And even then, the DEF CON SAO thing is not an official DEF CON thing. It was something that the badge life community kind of created, and then DEF CON kind of adopted-ish. It's weird. I don't even know how to explain that dynamic. I've seen it used on some unofficial DEF CON badges, like the DC 801 badge for DEF CON usually has it on there, because, you know, it makes sense, right? But I haven't seen any others. Yeah, any question?
Yeah, you've made quite a few badges at this point. Do you have a favorite? And if you do, why?
Oh, I'd say my favorite has to be the Enigma badge. It was awesome. It was beautiful, and I got to use things that I haven't used since college, like an FPGA. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, and that one created so much interaction with everyone. It was just awesome.
Last year, this layer cake was fantastic too.
That's true. The layers last year was a lot of fun. Oh, no.
There was some crazy aspects.
That capacitive touch wheel was a nightmare. Thanks. Thank you. Was there a question over here? Sorry, I saw a hand. Oh, yeah.
Why did you add the rainbow mode?
Why did I add the rainbow mode? So you had something to unlock at the end when you finish it?
You could just turn it off while holding down. Maybe it's off.
That is so holding is it up or down? One of those buttons, when you turn it on, it will just flash red, green, and blue. And that is just an LED test so that when you bring your badge to us and say, this isn't working right, we can turn it on and be like, yes, all the LEDs are working, or yeah, those ones are broken, right? Especially when the game is based on you seeing an LED turn on to tell you that something is not the right answer. So That was just a test mode. The rainbow mode, when you finish it, is very different. Yeah. Sorry? Right here? Oh, yeah, that is a debug connector port. So it's actually the pads for it are on the back of the badge for debug. It's for a tag connector, which is horribly expensive, but it means there's no physical connector on the board, so it doesn't cost anything per board to put it on there. So that's what that is. Other questions? Okay.
With your boards after your badges, do you display them? Do you collect them? Do they go in a box, put them in the bed? Like, how
Yeah, I've got them all hanging up on my wall in my office, like 12 feet worth of just lanyards and badges all across the wall. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, all right. I guess we're over time. Thank you, everyone.